Hi guys, Jay here from FullTimeDEVILS. You're watching the transfer update. Now, the latest sort of news on the Aaron Wan Bissaka saga that everyone is no doubt wondering about is that a deal hasn't been done yet. Now, we were hearing a few days ago that a deal had been done, that Palace and Manchester United had agreed terms. Obviously, the player wanted to come, so that everything looked like it was sorted. But that apparently now isn't the case. What we heard was, first of all, we heard that a deal had been agreed. That was a couple of days ago. Then we heard it wasn't quite finalised, that although the fee had been agreed, the terms hadn't in terms of how United paid it. It was a structured deal where United wanted to pay, say, 35 million up front and then X, Y and Z as and when appearances were made. Palace weren't happy with that. Now, the latest is that a deal hasn't been reached, that terms haven't been agreed between the clubs and talks are ongoing. Now, Simon Stone from the BBC, who's a reliable source, he tweeted, I think it was last night, that it's a fluid situation and it can change quickly, but was told earlier that a deal not really close, I think is what he said, between Palace and Manchester United. Now, we know that United want Wan Bissaka. We know that United have been speaking to Crystal Palace. It's been roughly about, I think, 10 days, since this all started, or 11 days, I should say. And it feels like a lot longer because it's just sort of dominating the headlines. There's been sort of toing and froing. United initially made, I think it was a £40 million bid, or roughly around, it might have been a little bit lower. That was rejected. Palace were wanting nearer to 60 million. We're hearing that the common sort of ground has been reached between around the 55 million mark, but the question is, how is that going to be paid? Because United want to do it in a deal where you pay pay a chunk up front and then pay other bits later on, as they did with Anthony Martial, for example. Martial's deal, I think it was an initial £36 million payment for Martial that could rise up to anything up to, I think, 75 million if he wins the Ballon d'Or. I think that was the deal that was negotiated when we bought Anthony Martial from Monaco. So this carries on rumbling on over the weekend, possibly into next week as well. It's a deal that looks like it is going to happen, but we're going to have to wait. So it's one, again, we'll be keeping you updated with. It's one that we'll be keeping our eye on and let you know if there's any changes or if he's announced or if the deal is agreed. We know the player wants to come. We know that Manchester United want him. We know the fee is more or less set. I think the stumbling block appears to be how United pay for him. Did he pay it all in one go, which is what Crystal Palace want? Did he pay 2/3 of it up front, or do they pay a little bit further down the line based on appearances and things like that? So, as I said earlier, we keep going with this one. We keep an eye on it. It would be, though, a massive disappointment if after all this, Aaron Wan Bissaka doesn't end up at Manchester United. And it would be a little bit embarrassing, I think, after what's gone on and the fact the club have sort of shown their hand, and it's well known the club are after him, the talks are ongoing. If all of a sudden we walked away, I don't know, it'd just seem like a big waste of time, and wasting time is something we can't really afford to be doing. Now, talking of such, another target that United had, or have, is Harry Maguire. There was talk that Mcguire was a target for United, even going back to the Jose Mourinho days, that Jose wanted Harry Maguire, and that Ollie is a big fan as well. Now, stories broke sort of in the last 24 hours that Harry Maguire could be heading to City. Apparently, Pep is a fan. Now, if I don't know if anyone watched that documentary that Manchester City made last year, I didn't, I couldn't be doing with that, but Pep sort of dismissed Harry Maguire a little bit. He said he was slow in one of his team talks, but apparently he's changed his tune now and he really likes Harry Maguire. And some newspapers, mainly the Daily Star and other newspapers have jumped on the back of it, are reporting that Harry Maguire is actually, there's a medical booked in by Manchester City for Harry Maguire. I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think that's true. I think the interest from City may well be true. Vincent Kompany's obviously moved on. They'll be looking for a centre-back, and Harry Maguire fits the bill, and he had a very good game against Manchester City, which could have convinced Pep Guardiola to go for him. But I don't suddenly think that City have somehow made this deal happen and are now at the point where they've got a medical booked in for the player, because, I mean, the fees being spoken about here were 65 million, which earlier in the week, not even earlier in the season, earlier in the week, when United was showing interest, we were talking, it was being touted that Leicester wanted around 90 million for him, around 80 million, if not, around that figure. So for City to come in with a £65 million bid, and that to be more or less done, and then for them to say, right, okay, now we're at the point where we're going to get our medical booked in, it seems a lot like paper talk. And what's happened here is, I think it's the Daily Star who originally run the story. They've ran it, and other newspapers have reported it on the back of the Daily Star. So it's almost like a bit of an echo chamber. So I'd be a little bit sceptical of that one if I'm being honest. City may well come in for Harry Maguire, but I don't think that a medical's booked in. I certainly don't expect him to be announced next week as a Manchester City player. That'd be moving very quickly if that happens. Now, another target that United have been linked with that could happen is Bruno Fernandez. Bruno Fernandez, anyone who watches Transfer Daily updates or watches Full-Time Devils knows that a lot of us here are fans of Bruno Fernandez. Scored loads of goals in Portugal last season. He's 24, attacking midfielder, fits the bill. Even if Paul Pogba stays, he fits the bill. If Paul Pogba leaves, he definitely fits the bill. Now, the stories doing the rounds are that Spurs were interested in Bruno Fernandez. There was reports that a couple of months ago, Manchester United met with Bruno Fernandez's agent and said, we are interested, but we want to sort out all the targets first, mainly Aaron Wan Bissaka. And that's the case, that's what's being reported. Spurs have gone in and said, listen, we want Fernandez, but according to the reports here, what's being said in the Telegraph were reporting that Spurs were in for him. Now, what's meant to have happened is Spurs were in for him as a replacement for Christian Eriksen. Now, Christian Eriksen is being linked with a move to Real Madrid. So if Eriksen goes to Madrid, Fernandez was supposedly going to Spurs as a replacement for Christian Eriksen. Now what's happening is, again, according to reports, Christian Eriksen may well not be going anywhere because even though he came out and said he wanted to move, the fees that Spurs wanted were around £100 million and no one's really biting for that. Sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it, to be honest with you? A midfielder wants to leave and no one's quite matching the price that the club are asking for. Anyway, because Spurs are thinking, right, okay, maybe we're not going to go for Fernandez, get my words out, United are back in for him. So that's a move a deal they're looking to make happen. But again, a lot seems to depend on Real Madrid and whether they're going to come in for... If they're going to come in for Eriksen, then that will change that and Spurs would go in for it. And you don't know, Fernandez might fancy Spurs. But if they're not, are they going to come in for Pogba? Are United really interested in Fernandez if Pogba stays? Or is it just if Pogba goes, he's a replacement? It seems United are interested in him either way. If reports are to be believed that United were speaking to his agent a couple of months ago, because that was before Paul Pogba ever mentioned about wanting to leave. And as we know, a couple of months ago, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, even going a couple of weeks ago, even after Paul Pogba's recent statement, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has always said that he wants Paul Pogba to be part of his plans. So the Fernandez interest from United could well be real, regardless of what happens with Paul Pogba. It's just a case of seeing how that pans out, because at the moment, Pogba is involved in a bit of a merry-go-round, if you will, of clubs and teams looking at him, and it's if he goes here, will this deal happen? If he leaves United, will United then get in Fernandez and maybe Maddison as well? If he doesn't leave United, does that mean that Fernandez goes to Spurs? Or if he doesn't leave United, does that mean Real Madrid coming for Eriksen? It's a bit of a mess. I don't know whether Paul Pogba's going to end up at Real Madrid. I mean, you look at who Madrid have bought this summer, you look at it and you think, okay, they're rebuilding massively, they're spending lots of money, why not come in for Paul Pogba? After all, they bought in already Jovic, Hazard, Mendy, Rodrigo. They've spent hundreds of millions of pounds. Why not go the whole hog and do a complete rebuilding exercise? I don't know though. Do you get to a limit? Because they have already spent, I think, 300, 400 million already on those players I mentioned? Militao as well, I almost forgot about him. So they've brought in a lot of players and it might be a case of, right, that's enough now, we have to draw a line under it. And they've already arguably got the big marquee signing in Eden Hazard. He's I think, 100 million for him? Big player, massive reputation, he could be the star there. So do they need another star in Paul Pogba? It remains to be seen. The other club interested in Paul Pogba, of course, are Juventus. Again, it's all about the fees. Can Juventus afford him? Someone tweeted Full-Time Devils earlier saying, could Federico Bernardeschi, I hope I pronounced that right, be used as part of the deal? He's a left winger there or an attacking midfielder at Juve. I've not heard that mentioned at all. Possibly. I don't know whether they'd want to use him as part of the deal, and I've not heard any interest from Manchester United. So that does seem doubtful. I mean, you could look at it and say, well, he's a left winger, he's an attacking player that could fit onto the left-hand side. He likes to cut in. That could fit the bill for United. We perhaps need someone there. But then you think, well, Do we? Is that something where we're looking for? We've brought in Daniel James, who's a winger. We've still got Alexis Sanchez on the books. Don't know if he's going anywhere. Anthony Martial can play out wide. Marcus Rashford can play out wide. I don't know. I don't really see that one happening, to be honest with you. So I wouldn't bank on that. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens with Paul Pogba. He may well have to take some sort of pay cut. That's what's being spoken about as well. He might have to take a wages cut or some sort of deal maybe have to be made there. I don't know if that's going to happen. All we know is that Paul Pogba wants to leave. He said that. He said he wants a new challenge. Juventus are interested in. Apparently, Maurizio Sarri has been sort of spoken to about him and he's a big fan. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that one. Again, I expect that to drag on and on. I've been saying that it's something that could happen. It's something that could take weeks for that to be sorted because of the money involved and obviously Mino Raiola as well. We all know he likes to get top whack for his players. So again, it could go on for quite some time. I wouldn't expect that to be done anytime soon. The other player who's been linked with a move out who looks like he is going to go, or at least wants to go, is Romelu Lukaku. Now, the sticking point here for Lukaku is he wants to go. Inter apparently want him. Conte is a big fan. Apparently Conte wanted him when Chelsea bought Alvaro Morata. The first choice was allegedly Lukaku. Now, the issue for Inter is they've got Mauro Icardi, and they need to offload him to bring in Lukaku. Icardi's valued at around £60 million. Now, you may look at it and say, OK, well, Icardi scores goals, striker, why not just do some sort of swap deal? He comes to Old Trafford, Lukaku goes the other way. The fees are roughly the same, everyone's happy. But I don't think Oli fancies Icardi, and I don't blame him. Icardi, for me, he's almost like Lukaku, but not quite at that level. And people may look at his goal-scoring record and say he scored loads of goals, which he has. But if you look at last season in particular, I think he got 11 league goals. So it's almost identical to Romelu Lukaku's goal-scoring tally. And for me, Romelu Lukaku's doing it in a more difficult league. People may disagree. And I think Lukaku is more of a Premier League type player than Icardi. So I don't see that one happening, to be honest with you, in terms of Icardi coming to United. Will there be any takers for him elsewhere? You think so. Goal scorers aren't exactly in abundance. Everyone wants a goal scorer. He can score goals at the top level. I think he's not that old as well. I think he's around 26 years old. So something could be done there. We'll have to wait and see. But at the moment, it looks as though Inter are going to have to offload him to bring in Lukaku. So the interest in Lukaku is real. He wants to go. Everyone would be happy if he went to Inter. I think that would suit everyone. But we're just going to have to wait. At the moment, a deal's not on the cards because Inter don't have the money until they get rid of their other striker. One final one on the outs is, even though he's not going anywhere, I just thought we'd talk about him because he's been in the papers a lot recently, is Jesse Lingard. There were reports about, obviously, if you've not seen it, he's done the rounds on Twitter. He's done a Snapchat video of him in a hotel room with Marcus Rashford and a few other people messing about. Just sort of, I don't know, making daft noises and bouncing about on the bed and all sorts of other pretty mature stuff. People are quite upset about it, and there's been reports that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has seen this and he's angry about it and that he's going to have a word with Lingard about his behaviour on social media. I don't know about that one, to be honest with you. I don't know. If you look at the story, originated that Ole was unhappy from the Daily Mail, and for me, it sounds like the Daily Mail are probably more unhappy than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is. I mean, they've got a Raheem Sterling hole to fill in their papers because since he's become the golden boy, they need someone else who's young and of a certain ethnic group to pick on, should we say. So maybe Lingard fits the bill. I don't know. It sounds just like paper talk that Ollie's outraged or going to have a word with him. And to be honest with you, I think the whole thing is a bit of a storm in a teacup. I think we've got bigger fish to fry than whether two United players on their holiday are posting videos. That's just me anyway. Just going to look in the comments before we go. Adam is gone. No, he's not. Adam will be back this weekend. Don't worry. We need another striker. Yeah, we do need another striker. If Lukaku goes, we 100% need to replace him because we're in a position here where Lukaku could go for whatever, 60 odd million or whatever. Pogba could go for 100 odd million. Now, you're looking at two players there that were worth about, 25 goals last season, who could bring in about 170, 180, even 200 million, upwards of that. You've got to replace both of them. You've got to go out there and spend big money. I mean, there was talk United were going to spend around 150 million anyway, without selling Pogba and Lukaku. So if you sell them two, then you've got to spend at least the money you were going to spend. It makes no sense. Longstaff, running your midfield. There's been talk of Longstaff coming to United now for a few weeks. Wait and see on that one. The talk was that a deal could be made for around 25 million. Makes sense if you look at Daniel James, the fee that the sort of the age he was, young player, knows the English leagues. Longstaff could be someone who fits that bill. Not sure if it's going to happen though. 40 million Lukaku. No, if we're going to sell Lukaku, then I think we need to be getting roughly what we paid for him. Now people laugh at that and say he's been a joke at United, he's been a disaster, but he hasn't. Because if you look at it in terms of his first season, I think he scored 27 goals in all competitions, which that's far from a disaster. That's quite a good return. Second season, okay, he didn't have the best season, but he still got into double figures, still scored some important goals, not least of all in Paris. And he's a proven top-level striker. I think he's Belgium's leading goal scorer. He's still relatively young at 26 years old. So I think United will look to get roughly what they paid for him back. Anything from around sort of 65 to 75 million-ish. I would be surprised if you let him go for anything less than that because I think, as I said before, he's a proven goal scorer. Whether you think he's a Manchester United player or not, he's still someone that should fetch a fee. And I think it is time for him as well to move on because it's just not happened for him at Old Trafford in terms of, yes, he had that good first season, but his second season, it hasn't been great. And I think he's one of those players that when he isn't playing well and he's touch and all the rest of it, lets him down, he gets highlighted and he's had quite a lot of stick and I think it'd be good if we could get some money and bring him back in. I'm going to wrap it up now, guys. I will say that we will have more updates as and when they come. I think it's going to be Adam with you on Sunday, so don't forget to tune in to Full Time Devils on the YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and also follow us on Instagram and on Twitter as well and on Facebook. We'll be keeping you updated and as and when we hear any news, we'll have it here first. So keep it locked, guys. Thanks for watching.